Hello, welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, and sometimes even John. How are you all? Hello, 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 hello. Yes, hello to all the peepers. Ah, dear. Yes, it's Thursday. It's Thursday, guys. We're almost to the weekend. Woo! And guess what I got yesterday in the mail? Actually, David got it, but it was my present, so I opened it anyway. He said it was okay. So now I'm on the hook. I have to have his bust done, the present that I'm painting for him. I have to have it done by the time he gets back. So that means that I have until Sunday morning, essentially. He gets back late Saturday night. So we have Saturday streams. So just to put a plug in here now, I do a Saturday stream on my own channel, which is twitch.tv/paintingbig. And so on Saturday then at around we start around 3:30 p.m. Central, USA Central Time. I will be doing finishing work on the bust for David. It's an Ignis art bust of a satyr forest demon type, and we'll be doing the final run on that, except for maybe some touch-ups that I might do later that night. But yeah, so if you want to see what sort of finishing work we're going to be doing, then tune in. And thank you for the shout out, Quindy. So yeah, so I got, Esther and Jean, I got those Chimera Pegaso busts, the three women, the female samurai, the geisha, and the, kind of the African shamanist witch doctor kind of thing. They called them the Three Jewels, and they were promoted before Christmas. They were supposed to be to us by Christmas, but then, yeah. So it's a 3-bust series. It was really expensive, so I was like, I can't afford this, but I really like these. And so David bought it for me for Christmas. And then it took forever to get here, which is great because it enabled me to finish his present, because the weeks leading up to Christmas for me were super busy, which I didn't foresee. Because usually they're not bad, but we were having people over this time, so it was different. And we had a vacation. So yeah, so I got those and they finally came in the mail yesterday. The funny thing is I'm actually coaching one of my coachees on painting one of those, so that'll be fun. Like, I almost feel like I shouldn't paint that one first. So yeah, but first I have to finish David's present. And then I think also I want to finish Noli, because she's getting close. Like, if I just spent some time on her hair, she'd be really close to done. Noli doesn't have to be, amazing. Noli just has to be done, because Noli is entirely for me. Let's get in focus. Hello, Lady Nim. Long time no see. But yeah, so Noli's I need to do her hair. I got all of her, almost all of her ties all, kind of marked out and stuff, underpainted, so I could do them in gold and maybe silver. Maybe I'll mix it up. But I need to work on her hair more, and I need to finish some of the cloth on her little earrings. I need to finish her earrings, period. And the beads. So she doesn't have that much more. I feel like I could finish her, and then I could start 2 new projects. That would be exciting. Exciting. Since, for those of you who didn't know, one of my resolutions was to paint a little bit more, and I only can buy a new model if I paint 2. So that's the goal. That's the goal, is to paint more this year. I've been pretty good. I just put out a PDF for my Patreon about kind of, painting more and tips and tricks to break burnout and stuff. That's for $10 level, but I'm using those tips and tricks myself to try to get a painting habit established in the evening. So I'm kind of aiming for a no 0 days, other than vacations if we're out of town. That's what I do with my writing, and it's really effective for me. So essentially, even if I only sit down for 5 minutes and put just a base coat on hair or something, I still sit down for that 5 minutes, at least to get a little bit done every day. And I learned long ago that this is actually an effective tactic for me, and seeing the progress, even though it's tiny progress, keeps me enthused about the model. So, good morning, Carrie Michael. So yeah, we're gonna do some skin highlights today, I think, all around this. I've got my rosy tones more or less in, so I think we're gonna concentrate on highlights today. We've been talking about it for a while. Last time, although the stream was very, very kind of persnickety, we nonetheless did the eyes to a point where I'm pretty happy with them at the scale they're at. So we'll get the rest of the skin highlighted now because we're really just, this is just the mid-tone. Like we really haven't put in any real big light. So we're going to mix up our base, and our base is 2-to-1 tan skin, that's 9044, and Griffin Golden Brown. I always say tan skin is the most versatile skin tone we have. It absolutely is. You can add white to it and get a great fair skin tone out of it. You can add red, brown, or brown to it and get a good darker like skin tone out of it. It's very, very versatile. And if you add like a red brown, like mahogany brown, you can get a like wind blown, like reddish, weathered look out of it. So it's just a great paint to have. You should definitely have it in your arsenal. There's nothing else in the line that does what tan skin does. And I set it up that way. Like back in the beginning, I'm like, I need a master key skin color that I can go anywhere with. And so that's what I did. Alrighty. You can also get some good, more golden toned skin colors by mixing this with the Golden Skin Triad, by the way. If you want to go golden but not like straight out like Asian, you want maybe just a little bit of rosiness to it, as some people's skin tones are. You can pull it that way. Like seriously, you can do anything with this. Even mix it with rosy skin if you want to go the other direction to more of a pinkish skin tone, a little more pink than this. So let's do our 4 drops of tan skin. We want to mix up a big puddle of our starting base color. And the starting base color again looks like this. I've kept this all on the card so we can see what we are doing. This is why I use these little watercolor cards. They're really good that way. I've got my blush color, my shadow. That's my lip color as well. And then, hello. Oh, your Zoom meeting got out early. Yay, Eric. Yay. But yeah, so, and then I've got my slightly more reddish tone that I went kind of on the way to that. I wanted to bring it up a little bit reddish because she is a pirate. She's out on the open sea. She's in the wind and water all the time. But this is our keystone color. So we're going to mix this up and we're going to work the highlights from it. Because when you're doing highlights, especially if you're trying to portray somebody who's out in the sun, your highlights are going to go more golden. They're going to edge a little bit more toward the yellow side. And sometimes only a touch. You don't want to go super yellow with them, but you want them to shift warmer. So we're going to go that way. I am pretty good, Ron. I have been doing well on my week away from David. He's out skiing right now. He's having fun. I'm dealing with all of the housework. We had our entire back hedgerow. Like I'm looking out at it now, and all I see is fence. We had a bunch of plants pulled out yesterday, like an entire side of our yard. So now we have to get new plants and plant the new plants. But we realized, unfortunately, because when you do this sort of thing, you find these things out. Our back fence there is really close to falling down, so we should replace it. So yay, unexpected home costs. I'm like, welcome to home ownership. Hey, Colin. So yeah, so we're gonna have to do that, so it's all that. Alrighty, so there's our mix. It's 4 drops tan skin, 2 drops of Griffin Golden Brown, which is a fast palette color in the adventure color set, I think. We're gonna pop, probably it's 6 drops. We'll drop 2 drops of water in it and make it a 3-to-1. And then we are going to be adding a lot more white to that. So we'll see. I mean, our yard guy also does fence work, so he's going to give us a quote. Here in California, you actually split it with your neighbors, so I'm going to have to go and actually meet our neighbors across the back fence and talk to them about it. But apparently by law, neighbors each own half the fence, and so when you replace it, they each have to pay for half. So I'm hoping that they will be like, yeah, sure, no problem, instead of, oh no, no way, Because, I mean, it could last another 5 years, even though it's wobbly, but then it'll be a real pain. It's much easier to replace it right now where there are no plants. Wow, that's expensive, Eric. Yeah, lumber has gone up, so I do expect it to be a little pricier. It didn't cost us that much, I thought, in Texas, but that's everything is cheaper there, so... We shall see. We shall see. It's only one side, and our yard is small. It's not a big one. So we'll see. I am keeping open, and hey, at least we only have to pay half of it. Alrighty. So there's our base color. If I really want to make sure that I've nailed my base color, I can grab a little bit of this and actually paint it on the watercolor card. Sure enough, it's a perfect match. So great. Or as close to perfect as it makes no difference. That's another great thing about these watercolor cards is you can just dab a little bit over it and make sure that your mix actually matches. So it's a good tool. Now I'm going to take her hat off for today because I want to see everything. So she's got blue tack on her head to hold that in. So now you can see the shadow, which looks a little bit weird without the hat to tell you why the face is shaded like that. So you got to remember, without the hat, you've got to remember, oh no, I can't bring up my highlights as much on this new part. So if we're going to go up, I need, you know what? I'm going to use an artist reference. I'm going to use my color mixing for portraits. I just want to see, like, they give some great, this book is organized to give you a master recipe. And then it tells you, like, how to tune it to get your highlights and everything. So sometimes it's nice to look at these. If you see a skin tone that's close to what you're aiming for. That one's a little bit brown. That one's a little bit orange. This one's a little bit... But I like to see, like, what are they adding? Like, mostly I'm just looking at, are they adding, like, orange? Are they adding yellow? Are they adding white? You know, and how much yellow is in the original skin tone. So I'm looking for something that will be close. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get something close. Well, that's not bad. This is close, actually. But it's a very yellow skin tone recipe. But they're adding essentially a tiny bit of red as they go up and white, which is interesting and something you wouldn't think about. So we can see. Maybe I'll add tiny bits of red and yellow as I go up along with white. So artists, like 2D artists, when they do portraits, like good portrait artists do some really interesting things with color. You can always like look at examples. I very much advise people to like look at portraiture books, look at examples in galleries or museums to see what people do with colors. Because you can go a long way and make some really weird colors and still have it read as skin. Now here we're going with a much more natural. I'm not raking you guys through the crazy. So we're going with a much more natural highlight. Cool, Ron. Excellent. Okay, great, Eric. Yay! It worked! Yay! Yeah, I kind of experimented with my own brush before I like totally gave you that. Just because, yeah, when if I have a brush that's not really long and thin and broken in, I do find that sometimes it'll split if my paint is thicker. So yeah, I'm super glad that. And then it's just practice. Like at that point, it's just practice. Making sure you're unloading your brush and all that kind of thing. Good, you're on your way. I'm so excited. That's great. Hopefully you see big improvement and get excited. Oh yeah, San Diego, right? Yeah, we're not cheap up here too. So, but we have a quarter to replace of what you have. So we'll see what the quote comes back as. All right, so I'm going to add some white. I'm interested in that whole adding red stuff, but I don't know that I want to go that way. I think I want to go more gold because I'm in sunlight. The problem, okay, so the downside of these portraiture books is they are not factoring in, when they're mixing these highlights, they're not factoring in the color of the light. They're just giving you kind of a blank slate that'll work, but if I'm specifically looking at sunlight out on the water, then I definitely want to go more yellow with it, right? So the Bones USA are like that too, Ron. Bones USA have as much detail as the metal models. But yeah, metal is, I'm still fond of metal. I mean, we're painting our ogre. Our ogre is metal. And my half orc that I kept was also metal. So I do like working on metal. So let's grab, that's our base. I might use blonde hair again. No, I don't know. No, I'm not going to use blonde hair. I'm going to go for a more... I tend to like Naples yellow, and the closest thing to Naples yellow in our line is like sun yellow or NMM gold highlight. So I think I'll go NMM gold highlight for my yellow. But I don't necessarily want to bleach it out. So, I'm going to mix this color and then I'm going to tune it. So when you're mixing highlights, it helps to use not just white, but a little bit of yellow. But when you're first starting for your highlight, don't go too yellow with it. You want to warm it up, but you don't want to totally like yellow it out. It can look good on some really golden skin tones, like that kind of the lighter African skin tones, like go real golden in the sun. It's beautiful color. You can go more yellow with that for sure. And if you're painting something that's like golden hour, where you're specifically trying to capture a very yellow light source, like at 5 p.m., in the afternoon when the light gets really gold, then you absolutely take it up more yellow. But yeah, photography, it's a thing. We're going to have a class out here. Eric, did you just say you were in San Diego? Up here we have a con, Kubla Khan. And I know that Dev, who's one of the people in our paint club, Dev is going to do a class at Kubla about photography, about photoing your minis. He does a lot of photography, both with phone and with DSLR. So you might aim for that. It's Memorial Day weekend. I don't know when classes are going to be up online, or if they are. I've been bad about checking that. But if you want to learn to take good photos, Dev seems really knowledgeable. Bones Gourmand. Agent Marvel, when I get a Bones model, I will get some really hot water, not boiling or anything, but as hot as my faucet will go. I will drop some dish soap into the water. I will put the Bones model in there and I will swoosh it around. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. And then after I've swooshed it thoroughly, sometimes if it's got lots of crannies, I'll get my hands in there and just make sure that I'm kind of rubbing, the surface. But that's the most I do. After that, I get it out. I rinse it out over hot water. Sometimes I'll just directly pour out the bowl and then put water in it, mix it around, pour it out, put more water in it, mix it around until the water runs clean. At that point, I put the model out on the counter and let it dry for 24 hours. Or at least 12, overnight. I let it dry overnight, whatever time of day I'm doing it. And then I have no problem. The other thing is make sure that you are, so I don't just dunk it in soapy water. I actually mix it around a bit. And it's hot water as well. If you did that and it's still not sticking, yeah, okay. So you did something different? Yeah, the other thing is your paint consistency. Some models, even after washing, you may not be able to go thinner with your base coat. So you may have to use like a 5 or 6 to 1 paint to water to get it to stick, or put it full strength if you can do that without brush strokes. But on a big model like that, I'd try to thin it just a little. So it also depends on how thin your paint is. I do every once hit a model that that is a little bit resistant, like it got a little extra mold release. All right, let's mix up a highlight. Grabbing that. The other color we could use here to highlight is actually what we'll call a non-yellow yellow. We could use polished leather instead of using a flat out yellow. What this would do is it would actually let us control how light we get a little bit more, because this color is closer to my base skin color here as far as light and dark. So instead of tossing in something that has a bunch of white in it, we'd be using this. And then adding white to it gives us a yellow, believe it or not. I've talked about this, I think, before. Maybe I'll do a PDF on it eventually. But here to show you, polished leather. I'm going to put it up top because I don't know how much I'm going to use it. Uh-oh, pokey tool needed. Polished leather looks brown. It's essentially it and rich leather. If you mix them together, you get a really close match for artist's raw sienna. So let's see here. Or am I thinking of raw umber? I think I'm thinking of raw sienna. But it's essentially a foundational skin color in oil painting and tube acrylics. So we'll put that color up here. So you can see that it's a brown, but it's a very yellowy brown. But if you pop white into that color, it really changes. Bones USA minis are on. They're technically, Bones Black is also pretty good, but I like the material of the Bones USA a little bit more. But I promote Bones USA to any and all because they're superior. They're just superior. Like, I like them better than metal at this point. And I thought I didn't think I'd ever say that. All right, so then you mix water with it, and what do you get? You get yellow, look. And it's a nice kind of soft yellow too. It's not a yellow that's going to like look artificial with your skin tone. So that is polished leather plus white. That's it. It's this brown color plus white. It shows you how much yellow is in this color. So what you can do is use polished leather as a yellow. So let's do that. Let's actually add just a touch of polished leather. And I'm getting more that I like this, where I don't use necessarily full drops, but I'll just take my brush, I'll squeeze out a little bit. Sometimes I'll squeeze it onto the cap top, or sometimes I'll just squeeze it out onto the, out of the bottle just a little bit. So we get a little bit of it, and we just grab a little bit of it onto our brush. It's about like that. So it's not even like, it's probably only about a quarter of a drop. Just a touch, just a bit. And yeah, you know, like, you could say, oh, but it's going to make harder to repeat the mix, but not really. You're always going to get something like this. Like you could take a picture of it to show yourself how loaded your brush was. So that, and I think I'm going to add in 1 drop of white. So white. And this, and I'm already just transferring 2 brushfuls over. So I'm already pretty inexact. So let's mix that up and see. And what that's going to do is it's going to warm up this skin tone a bit. It's going to shift it a little bit toward yellow without taking it really yellow. I think that that's not quite enough. I didn't quite put a full drop of white in. I was being a little timid. So let's use, I did more of a half. So this is like exactly what you'd encounter if you were using tube paint crows, because this color is very close to, like I said, it's raw sienna. So it looks like a brown, and then you add white to it. And that's because some yellow pigments are just dark. Like if you look, you do the same thing with oxide yellow. I mean, yellow oxide at least looks like it's yellow, but it'll get much brighter if you add white to it. Super bright. It's why I don't put NMM Gold's midtone over white primer or white bones, because it's too garish. So our difference here now, C, is lighter. It is a little bit warmer because I did add in that touch of polished leather. If I add in another touch, I can shift it even warmer. So I've got a full drop of white in there. I think I'm going to do a little bit more. Maybe even a little bit more. There. And as I mix that in, it's going to get a little more yellow. But because this yellow isn't like a super strong, like bright yellow, it's more subtle. It's not going to swing it too far to the point where it looks unnatural. It actually looks pretty good. Here, let me get my big black base here. So there's our progression. Now you can really see these colors. That's actually exactly how they look in person. So this is the polished leather plus white to show you what we're using to lighten this color. This is our base that I brought a couple of big brushfuls over into this this pod to deal with. And then we maybe got about like a half a drop of polished leather and 1 full drop of pure white. So it shifted it this way, it shifted it warmer. And if I cover up the yellow, you can see that. You can see that this looks a little colder and this looks a little warmer. And that's what I like to see. That's what I like, that kind of transition I like to see. Now, if I feel like I'm losing some depth, I can add a little bit of red as well, but I'm not sure I want to go there. I think I want to go up this way. Just looking at it. Yeah, I think so. I want a warm skin tone, and I'm always conscious of the light color. So these days, thanks to my fiance, I cannot ignore the light color. David's either very good for me or very bad for me. I haven't decided. Oh dear. All right, so let's grab some of this. Now, I did add a ton of white to this, remember? I added a big drop of pure white, and that means we need to thin it because we're doing layering and we're doing like really fine. So normally to get pure white to layer, I'd have to add about 2 drops of water to 1 drop of paint, sometimes even more. More often I will go actually to 2 to 5, or 2.5 to 1, 1 to 2.5. So that would be 1 drop of white for every 2.5 drops of water, or 2 drops of white per 5 drops of water. So here I'm going to put in 2 drops to at least take down my white, and then I'm going to see where I have to go from there, because I didn't have that much water in the paint to start with. If you remember, our original coat was like 3 to 1, which is not even close to layering. So we shall see how this goes on, and we will adjust. Well, there isn't as much variety in the Bones USA run, so don't feel bad. Metal is still really good. Also, if nobody orders metal, Reaper will stop making it. So remember, Reaper is run by commerce. If you guys stop ordering metal, then metal won't be made anymore. Or we'll make less and less of it. I kind of expect, I don't know what Ed thinks. I haven't talked to him about the biz, like lately. But I wouldn't be surprised to see people ordering less metal just because of the prices. So if you want metal to stay a thing, then order it. And if you don't care, well, then just do you. But yeah, metal models are still awesome. Now, I like having my base coat open here because if I do a little bit too far, I can correct. I'm going to get close now since we've set it up. You guys know what colors I'm using. We're going to get closer on the face. There we go. Really close. Yeah, metal is going to get more and more expensive, especially with, a lot of the tin mines are in China. So as tariffs and taxes and stuff shoot up, it gets more and more expensive. And then the models get more and more expensive. I mean, that's why, they probably are happy that they invested in the Bones infrastructure because at this point, and especially Bones USA, because at this point it gives us somewhere to go. They're just good. I don't know. Reaper, I think, has a full collection of all the colors. We were only missing like one of them, and Rhonda got it for us. Okay, so putting down a little bit of dab. See how that does not blend in. I'm going to grab a little bit of my base color and just kind of smooth that out. Do a little bit of a wet blend there to blend that in. So doing it on a very small area lets me correct. And kind of blend in that color. What that tells me, though, the fact that I got those brush strokes tells me that I need to go more water. When you add white to anything, if you want to get a blend, see, now it's blending in as it dries because I blended it in. But if you are working with highlights, you almost are always adding a ton of water. It may be out of your comfort zone how much water you're going to add. Yeah, actually, because you're in the UK, Ron, you probably have it good because maybe in Europe they haven't realized how awesome Bones USA is. So you might be able to you might have it really good because other people might not be ordering as much of it until they figure it out. Until they figure out that it's awesome, then look out. Yeah, lead was very different to work with, as well as toxic. Whee, fun, but lead, in some ways, all my old Confrontation, my Rackham figures, those are all pretty high lead mix. I believe that, was it Parther or Grenadier? I think everybody was using white metal then, so it still had a lead content, but it also had a lot of tin in it. I don't know, Ed would know more about that. He knows more about the history and how the mixes maybe changed over time. But they're not solid lead. You can really find old solid lead figures, but I don't think that the D&D stuff was like lead. I think it was an alloy. a mixture. And it just had a higher percentage of lead. And now, of course, people are going like lead free and have been for several years now. All right, so I've got a new thing to check. I'm going to get a lot of paint off of my brush. Oh, so much paint off my brush. And I'm also going to turn the figure upside down. Or maybe, now I'm going to check. I'll check it on her chin. Chins are easy. So I'm still getting a little bit of brush stroke. That's how powerful pure white is. Now, do I feel I can blend this? If I feel I can blend it, I might rock with it. I can still see the brush strokes. Most people won't, though. If I want really, really smooth skin, I've got a couple options. I could also work with my base color and do wet blends like I did up there. And the wet blend's going to be a lot easier down here because I've got like my paint thinned down a lot more and I'm not trying to hide such overt brush strokes. So it really depends how anal you're being about real smooth. And these days, you know, texture is a lot more popular, but on young female faces, you're still going to be doing a lot of smooth. So, oh, thanks, Julie. Yay! Tin, bismuth, and antimony. Okay. Antimony, rather. Yeah. I know the Rackham pieces had a high lead content, and one of the things that, I don't remember if Ed told me this, but when you have lead in the mix, it expands more than other, we're getting that color shift, there we go. It expands more, and so it actually minimizes your mold lines a little bit more, weirdly. And I've found this with the Rackham figures. So if I put that stroke on, you guys can see the line there, see? So this is why I say, like, you have to thin the bejeebus out of these paints once you start adding white. I mean, look at how thin this is. This is ridiculous. But here, I'll show you guys the Schmear test. Here's the Schmear test. Let's do it. I haven't done it for a long time because I do so much like wet blend and layer now. I really have like gone both ways. Let me back out and show you with this. So this is what I use the top of my palette for. In this big blank space up here. Is if I want to know, in the old days, before I got a really good feel for this, I would do a Schmear test. I would take brush full and I would do that. So what you're looking for here is you are looking for where the paint is pooling, you want it to look like the color, like your actual color of the paint. And where it's thin, you want it to be almost invisible. And you can see right away that this paint still has body. It still has coverage. It is not invisible where I'm pulling it thin. You can still see it. So this needs more thinning to be a perfect layering mix. That is the easy test for you to determine if your mix is good for layering. Get a ceramic tile if you don't have extra well space or a big flat space like that. You can sometimes find enough room on here to do it. I kind of did it there, but it wasn't as effective. So I went up north and did it on the top of the palette. So one more drop of water. Well, I'm glad you're got a lot of work to do though. Like that's nice. Job security. That's what we always used to say in the paint department, Bob and Julie. When you know, 50 zillion orders were hitting us for thousands of learn to paint kits, and you know, having a new release at the same time, and then trying to prep for Kickstarter, we would just say job security. So I did one more drop of water to see if I could get it. And here's what I have now. So I didn't have too much paint on my brush there. So let's see. That almost was too much. But if I look at this and I stretch it out, that's a lot more, like I can see that more than I can see that. It still might be too much. We're going to see. You can see how I used to just sit here and tune this stuff. Like nowadays, I can do it by feel because I've done it for so long. So if I need a perfect layer, I can like work my way there. Hey Max, thanks for the resub. Oh dear. Double sub-anniversary, double sub-anniversary, double sub-anniversary. Happy double sub-anniversary. Thank you. Thank you, Max. 2 years. 2 years. No, you're not looking at stuff differently. You're just like, we're not going there like right now. Hold on. So you've got two things here, Ron, okay? You do want a shadow on the side of the nose, absolutely. And there you can see that I've got quite a hard one. This side, since the light is slightly coming at this angle, I have a shadow there, but it's minimized. And one of the reasons you're not seeing it as much, see the shadow? Here's your highlight, and that's not even up. And then this is shadow. So part of the reason that doesn't look very dark right now is that we haven't brought up our highlights. So we're still working just on the base coat. So rather than darkening that shadow, you need to pull your highlights up first, then see how dark that shadow looks. Because as I bring in this lighter color on this cheek, that shadow is suddenly going to look a lot darker. Do you see what I mean? It's relative. And as for the lower chin, look, you can see the shadow. But you don't want, oh, I see the black squirrel. The black squirrel's like, where did all my hedges go? That is one confused squirrel out there, guys. One very confused black squirrel. Hi, little black squirrel. Sorry. The birds yesterday were so confused too. But anyway, so you can see there is actually quite a dark shadow under the jaw here that's painted in. But does that make sense, Ron? And you don't want much of that shadow, like on the chin here. Like if you look at my chin in the light, you only have that dark rim way at the bottom, right? So if you do that on the bust, you want to keep, if you're doing what you see on me on the bust, you want that shadow, and maybe you want a little bit of shadow kind of to confirm the shape of the chin. You want to leave a little bit. So I don't want my highlight to go all the way down the chin, but this is more a case of you don't want your highlight to go all the way down the chin than it is that you want to introduce a dark shadow. Yeah, because it's you can do it either way. When you put a highlight on, everything else looks darker. So when you think, oh, I need more shadow there, if you're still planning to do more highlights, don't do it. Wait until you do more highlights because it's going to change the look of the whole thing. So, all right, hopefully my paint consistency will cooperate with me now. I often do highlight, I feel, a little bit much for the chin, so I may knock hers back as we go, but we'll see. As I build highlights, I'm going to make the top of the chin definitely lighter. But look at how just putting in a little tiny bit of highlight makes the light so much more evident. So I'm going to kind of do a side brush stroke here, which isn't something I typically do. Yeah. And remember that your highlight actually does go up like kind of toward, it's up on the corner of this, in the inner corner of this eye. It does actually go up to around here. So I need to knock out that little shadow there. It's not how the highlights would actually work. There is a slight depression in the sculpt, and that's what we're hitting. And it was probably when they were sculpting the orbital of the eye and it was just stayed as an artifact. But if you look at your own eyes, the highlight like really does go up quite a bit. And David corrected me on this actually a long time ago. And it's why I look for it now, because I know that I tend to forget that. There. So we're blocking out that shadow now. We have that light going right up toward here. You want it in the inner corner of the eye. You really only get the shadow under the brow and on the side of the nose. And the side of the nose shadow is not nearly as dark as the under the brow shadow, just as we have them painted here. And you can see that also in my face. Like really, just look at pictures. Look at the people around you and look at pictures. Do factor in the lighting. Sometimes, you know, if the lighting is from the side or something, you will or won't see things that you would see otherwise. But this is a good layering consistency. I'm lightening the area without leaving brush strokes. The problem with layering is that it's slow. To do smooth layers is really slow. But it's very rewarding if you can get the face. Like, you guys can't see brush strokes on this, and it's like huge on your screens. So, you know, maybe you see a couple of brush strokes. There's a couple like hiding down here in this area because I haven't smoothed out this area yet. But in general, this looks pretty smooth up on my screen. So, yeah, you do need to slow down, definitely. I mean, absorb little bits of data. And honestly, Ron, if you can use this to remember that color is always relative to what's next to it, that is probably the most valuable lesson to take away from this. You can see how little paint is on my brush, by the way. Like, there's nothing puddling. And when you are doing smooth skin tones, I don't want to see puddles. Like, not even the tiniest puddle. And essentially I'm doing several layers of this highlight color to bring the color up and up and up and give us that light. See it now? See the chin and you're getting a lot more light there. Now we still have to do a little bit of the nose here. The tip of the nose will be pinker if somebody's been drinking or out in the weather a lot. But it also does have a light on it. I'm choosing to go not too pink here. She does have a bit of rosy color, but I'm keeping it minimal. A lot of times people will have more pink color around the nostril and underside of the nose than on the top of it. So you really, especially with young women, I tend to minimize any pink on the top of the nose, the tip of the nose, top of the tip of the nose. But yeah, for this highlight, I'm just layering up with the same color. I'm just getting more and more because it's so see-through that as I put it up, it'll become stronger and stronger. So I'm going to go until I think I've reached kind of the height of what this color can do, and then I will create a new highlight. Otherwise, I don't touch it when I'm working on this. I want to make sure that this highlight is as light as I want it. Gonna put a little bit of a highlight on the top of the nostril now. And I knew somebody who would layer, and honestly, you couldn't even see like his layers. Like he did it by memory. He just had a system and he would do these transparent layers over and over and he'd just shrink them just that little bit. He had a really good like eye and mind for like spatial awareness. And his stuff looked freaking airbrushed. That was Bobby Wong. He won a couple of Slayer swords back in the day here in the USA. And honestly, you would look at his stuff in person, it looked like he'd used tiny, tiny airbrushes because it was just that fine. I have never seen anybody since that day who layered like him. $20 years worth of info from your 2 years of subscription, so you win. You can sing with me, Moonglooms. That's cool. I do it pretty fast, so. But if you were here in person, like if we were all together and I was singing the happy subiversary song, we would all sing together, so it totally makes sense. I'm going to add a little water to my base mix here because I want to be able to use it, and I want it to be a little more thin, a little more transparent. This is where transparency is king. This technique is where Master Series wins, hands down. You can get to this point with Vallejo and some of the thicker paints, but you need to like really hit it like so hard with water and additives to get it there. I know because I used to layer with Vallejo and it just took so long to get it to the point I wanted it. So if I see a kind of a demarcation and I want to smooth it out, I'll bring in a little bit of my shadow color and layer it over the edge of what I've been doing to get that really smooth line or smooth fade so I don't get a line. Now I will put a little bit of this highlight on the other side of the cheek, but only toward the interior. Like this highlight that I've got here, because light is coming through here. I just want a tiny little bit of this highlight. Tiny little bit. You can see it going on. You can see it being very wet. But I can't bring it up too much over here because of the hat. But I want a little bit. Just on the inside. Should never hit the outside area of the cheek. And in fact, I'm probably going to drop the highlight a little bit out here. More into shadow as I glaze. And I'll be doing that. Actually, I'm going to bring it up along the jaw a little bit down there. And then I'm going to glaze probably with cooler colors. But yes, I will change the colors as I go up, Ron. I just, I'll finish out my current because I know it's going to take me at least 3 to 4 layers to build up this color because it's so watery. It's so thin. But yeah, layering is where Master Series has it. Layering and glazing. It's what this line is made for. Even though I have implemented a lot more wet blending, like I'm going to do now, if I want to move a little faster, then I'll wet blend my base color in. So I have implemented a lot more quick wet blends into my layering style in order to move faster. So I want to see that angle. And that is where the light is coming through. And you can see how, as I move the nose, see it. So shadow, and then there's where the light direction, light direction, light direction, light direction, light direction. Almost perfect. Given that we don't have the hat up here, but still, I can see through that area exactly into the spot that I highlighted. That's the goal. I'm going to do around the mouth now. Oh, Reaper paints need a lot less water than other lines. Like, the great thing about Reaper paint is that you can thin it to what you need with very little water. You will never use, ever, never use more than a 2:5 ratio. Pure white is the only color in Master Series that needs a 2:5 ratio. That's 2.5 drops of water to 1 drop of paint. Everything else is going to be more like 1:2 or 1:1. That's for layering. The 1:1s are usually the dark colors or medium colors that are not like super high coverage. Polished leather is a good example. But yeah, you don't need to go far to get them to where you need them. That was also intentional. Like, that was kind of part and parcel. I hated how much water I had to dump into other paint lines to get them to where I wanted them. And I hated the lack of adhesion, and I hated how they fell out of solution. I was using a lot of thin paint. Still do. So that was very intentional on the design of MSP. Doing a little bit of a wet blend here. It looks bright because I just brought it in, but as it dries, it'll go back to more of a normal. She has a little bit of a smile here, so I should keep a little bit of a crease here. It can be a little awkward, though. She's only got a slight smile, so I'm going to knock out a little bit of the crease. In a lot of faces, you've got this plane where it's the front of the face. So you usually have this highlight coming in an S curve. So here, and then in, and then down. An S. Backwards S. Or no, frontwards S on this side. Backwards S on the other side. So that's why I'm kind of connecting up, especially on young faces. You're going to see very little lines. And so you're going to see a much smoother transition here unless the face is smiling. And I'm keeping a tiny bit of shadow. You can see it to suggest that she is like got a little bit of an up curve to her mouth, but it wouldn't be a strong line. And so that's why I'm kind of blocking out this little shadow here now. Yes, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, they are very matte. I actually don't like that finish, Ron, to be absolutely honest. Dead matte finish is too matte for me. It distorts the color for me. So I've used Scale 75. I actually, I used it on a couple of my commission models because I like to know what other paints are in the industry. But yeah, it's just a little bit too matte for my taste. I like the MSP finish. Obviously, that's what I aimed for. MSP is more kind of an eggshell finish. It's got a tiny bit of life to it, but that lets our colors be a little bit more deep and vibrant. Because color does distort with finish. Remember, that's another thing, is that the finish of the paint will affect the look of the color. So I can see some lines there, so I'm going to take my base color again. And I'm going to layer it over the sides. If I go too far, I'm going to have to reintroduce my shadow. The other thing I can do here is glaze. So I'm going to take my base color, grab it, throw some water in it. Oh, and that 1 to 2.5 does not apply to glazes. That is a layering number, by the way. If you are glazing, you're going to go thinner. Glaze. Schlorf off extra glaze. Blend extra glaze. And that helps. A little bit of a crinkle here because she does have that quirk in the corner of her mouth is okay, but I don't like it. It's not quite right placement, so I've lost the edge of the mouth here, so I'm going to bring it back. I want to bring that highlight out so you can see that now that line makes sense. If you bring it in line with the edge of the mouth, because she has that little bit of an upturn at the edge of her mouth. That's where you can bring that in. Now here, we're definitely going to have some light as well. Sometimes the face will look wonky. Don't judge it until you have all of your highlights in. Only once you've got everything up to the level that you need, then you should look at the upper lip and say, okay, that's a little bit bright. But right now I really can't make that judgment call because I still have a lot of stuff to bring up with this first highlight. First highlight is even going to get a little bit of the jawline here. Because our jaws tend to flare out a bit, at least going back from the chin, it's a good idea to suggest that line. After that, you're suggesting it purely with the shadow. You've got this dark shadow here, so even if this is moderately dark, it's still going to look lighter than that shadow. Yeah, I've heard they have good metallics, Pendrake. I don't often metallic, and when I do, I mostly... I use a little bit of old GW for my steels, but otherwise for gold colors, tone colors, I use Reaper. And sometimes for highlighting, Vallejo Model Air. If I'm trying to do like really fine stuff where I need like a high coverage metallic. But often I want the metallic to be thinner rather than thicker, so I will often just use Reaper. And it all depends, like, just what effect you're trying to get. As you guys can see, this can take a while. But then you get that really smooth look, and then you're like, yeah, that's what I want. And remember how big you're seeing this too, right? Like, I could have some layers, and if we zoomed out, you'd be fine. But look at this. Like, this is why I've wanted to do a bust for you guys on stream for a long time, and do it old style, do it like, you know... Uh-oh, that squirrel is upset with somebody. There must be another squirrel. But yeah, so just to show you kind of like how you can get that light to show like the layering and how vivid it can look with the shadows and highlights and the light. I haven't been able to do anything like this on stream because we're always working on much smaller models, and you can do smooth layering on smaller models. It's even easier to make it look smooth because you have very little space. So you can actually get away on 28mm faces with leaving layers, but it won't look like it because everything is compressed into such a small area that it kind of covers you. But on something big like this is where you can really start bringing out just the depth of the face and the smoothness of the skin and even a little bit of texture, but I save the texture for like close to last. And don't forget, we have another little place that we are forgetting a highlight. And it's right here, this little muscle mass right next to the corner of the mouth, the lower corner, right down here. This squirrel is insane. Sorry, guys. I wish we should have squirrel cam because watching this little girl's antics is just really funny. She's funny. I assume it's a girl because usually with the guys you can tell. So, all right. So we've got this little group of muscle here at the lower edge of your mouth. It's like really involved with a lot of your mouth expression. Every paint line except for Master Series benefits Flow Improver. Benefits from Flow Improver detergent. Because only Master Series has Flow Improver added to the actual formulations. No other paint line does it. And that means that any other paint line is going to benefit from it. I am very much a Flow Improver devotee. It is the one additive that doesn't appreciably change the consistency or adhesion of your paint when you add it because you need only a very small amount in order for it to work very effectively. So I am very much a Flow Improver junkie. MSP satisfies me generally, but even then, often if I'm working with really fine stuff, I will add extra, just a little tiny bit extra. So a little bit of highlight there at that corner of the mouth. See it? And this is something that we've put in even on 28mm models. You can usually like get just a little bit of speck. It also helps to define the mouth, the expression. Like you bring in that highlight there and then that lower lip shows up better. Although she has a very fat lower lip, so not really necessary on this model. And a little bit more. We've got that shadow, remember, under that lower lip too, so you don't want to lose that. Aw. It can be fun to watch them. Yeah, now that our oleanders are gone, I can totally see them climbing around on the fence. They will be happy when the new plants go in. All right, so we've got this working really well. I like the overall look, the effect. So now we got to get the other parts of the face and the chest. So let's do chest. Now there's a lot of light falling on the chest because it is sticking out, so you are going to get a lot of light falling there. You've got a little less, you got some shadow on maybe on this side. You can see I blocked it in back there. We don't want too much highlight on the neck because if you have light falling from above, a lot of your neck's going to be in shadow. You can still see the tendon there, but really you're going to start getting light coming in on the collarbone. And on the hollow, like kind of, there's a hollow in the chest here. The collarbone, her dip in her collarbone goes pretty deep, which I actually don't like. So I'm probably going to block this in a bit to lose that shadow. Paint plastic surgery. Usually you've got a little divot here, and here the divot goes down a little lower. And so I'm going to kind of try to disguise that with paint. Or minimize it anyway. Sometimes when you're doing, and this bust has pretty good anatomy overall, I'll say, but sometimes when you're doing a bust, if there's a portion of the anatomy that you kind of don't like, feel free to tweak it. Tweak it with paint plastic surgery. Same thing we did up here, remember, with that little divot next to the eye. We just decided we didn't want it, so we minimized it with paint by painting a highlight over it so that it would kind of go away. Wasn't too deep, so it was pretty easy to do. Let's see here. Now the chest can be a very problematic area because it's a lot of like flat surface, but it also has like details and features, especially on women. On men, it's more about the musculature. But on women, you've got a lot of kind of flat, smooth space to cover. So pay attention to where your shadows are. Don't lose them. Your shadows become very important for defining this area. As you can see, I've got a little bit, the V shadow there, the shadow here, where the collarbones come in. I'm going to be accentuating that a little bit more as we go. Collarbones are sexy, so you should totally highlight them. Just saying. Maybe that's just me. And I'm just kind of going around and I'm just building up my highlights. I don't really care if I have a little bit of brush stroke going on at this point because since I'm layering up, I can continue to work it. I can always glaze if I want to smooth stuff out. I did one green oaks. You can see him. I think I put him up on my website and he's on my Instagram too. Let me see. I've been updating my website and so actually one of my patrons owns him. He was one of the first models I put up for sale. So yeah, so if you go to paintingbig.net and you go to the gallery, you can see stuff. Look, I've got more stuff here. No, Mr. Grumpy, Sacrifice. Yeah, there. So I did a dark elf bust, and it's you can see it better in person. I would say, because he was just a fun experiment, and I used him for the Patreon, I would say he did not have quite as much. Also, the picture does not show how smooth the skin was, but you can still see like the various features that I did on him. So you can go and take a look at him if you want. And that was kind of a weird skin tone, as I recall. I'd used a lot of kind of purpley colors in that. Yeah, his photo's a little overexposed. It was really hard with the white hair. But yeah, dark skin tones can be harder to blend because you're going from a really a color that's very transparent, because darker colors tend to be more transparent. You're going from that, and then you're adding white at some point, right, to bring up your highlights. White and yellow, touches of white and yellow of various types. And so when you add those colors, the paint goes from transparent to opaque. And that is when you get in trouble, because then it's really hard to hide brush strokes. Yeah, I did the tattoo on him. If you're on my Patreon, I actually did a Patreon video about doing the tattoo on him. So if you look up tattoos in the keywords, you should be able to find that if you're a patron. I think it was a $10 video. I tend to do the more advanced stuff for $10. And I also tend to do more painting big model stuff for $10, if I recall. So I'm working this. I've got a shadow here. It's a little bit too hard of a shadow over here, so I think I want to grab my base color and blend that in a little. And I'm still working. You can see like how I'm suggesting the shape here. I've got, again, you can see the divot there in the sculpt. I'm trying to like kind of disguise. And that's probably just her anatomy. But I can minimize it a little bit from the front, so I am. So this first layer of highlighting past your base coat is the longest phase. Everything after this, you're shrinking the highlights. And so as you shrink them, it will take you a lot less time. You can see how if you were painting a bust, thank you for the link to the Patreon, Quindy. If you were painting a bust, how with a lot of skin, as many female busts have, it would take a very long time to do this stage. But everything after this is downhill. Once you have this first layer, plus because this layer has white in it, it's somewhat opaque. And that means that every additional layer that you put over this that has more white is actually going to be a little easier to blend. So again, as you do each highlight, it gets a little bit easier. So I don't want to go all the way down in that V. I want to keep some of my base and shadow. Here you could choose to emphasize or de-emphasize her décolletage, depending on how hard a line you put. If you just smoothly blend it, you're going to de-emphasize it. And it also matters how dark your shadow is here. I went for a very natural look. I didn't want to overemphasize stuff. I don't want to really over-sexualize this model. But you can emphasize stuff a little bit if you want to. And that's just how much highlight you put on it, how much of a shadow you keep here. So like so. So you can see how little and tiny my brush strokes are, and I'm just really kind of like touching a little feather. That's why they call it feathering, is you're doing little lines like you're doing quills on a feather. And just like a feather, you want those touches to be really soft and light. Not much paint on your brush. So you see the more you emphasize the highlights there, the more contrast you're pulling in, the more the eye will go there. So like I said, I don't want to overemphasize on this model, so I'm not putting a lot of emphasis there on purpose. There are some models definitely that are sculpted to draw the eye to that area, and so, you know, go for it. But yeah, there are all sorts of, as far as dark elf skin tones, there are so many different ways to do dark elves. I think I have a PDF on that too, but I did 28 mil. I mean, you can go blue, you can go purple, you can go like with a more natural African skin tone if you don't want to go so fantasy with it. All those things work. So now we're really bringing up highlights. I like this. All right, I'm going to do one more layer on the chest here. We're going to go and do the ear, and then we're actually like, I should have taken a before and after photo because things have definitely changed. As I put more layers of this highlight up. I'm going to emphasize the center of the chest. That's where a lot of light is. I'm going to be paying attention to my anatomy to make sure that I'm not like covering over somewhere a shadow would be. I'm going to keep some shadows close to the clothing because they would be there with the overhang of the clothing on both sides. So I'm not going to like bring this highlight too close. On a 28 millimeter, you will bring your highlight up to the clothing just because your lining is your shadow at that point and it's not big enough to worry about. So there's a lot less contrast here because there's fewer shadows on this big flat area. Unlike up here where you've got very dramatic cheekbones. So your face, and that's good because your face then is still drawing a lot of attention. But now we can see the skin color has come down here and we definitely will have a lot of light here. Also, this area is really close to the bone. And so you won't see a lot of red tones here, like on the flat of the chest. Alrighty, so let's get on the ear. Now, if we look at ears, let's see here, ear. We tend to have a little pink down here, sometimes a little pink up here. Often there will be a pinker tone here if the ear sticks out because the essentially light will go through it, and because ears have a lot of blood flow, you'll see a pink tinge in the light. David and I were just arguing about this the other day. All right, so I'm going to add a lighter. I'm mostly going to highlight this, and then I'm going to question whether I need more pink tones, which I probably do. But I do want to get a little bit of highlight on here. I mean, it helps to look like the Google search you'd do would be like ears transmitted light. Transmitted light is light that comes through from behind the ear and actually changes the color. It also occurs in feathers when you see light passing through the feathers of birds and you see those light edges. It occurs in hair because hair is translucent. So you can go all in and do that kind of transmitted light effect, or you can make it more minimal. I tend to just not go there very much. It can be very hard to do on a model because everything is so very opaque. So, but I'm not adverse to putting some more pink tones up here. So let's get that mixed up. Let's grab some of our base color and mix up a little bit more of our pink. Yeah, we went a couple of ways with the drow. There's also the Dusky Skin tribe, but I think that got canceled, Green Oaks. It wasn't as popular as the purple one. The purple one is the most popular one, and then Dusky Skin was a bit more brown, a bit more natural, but that's actually, I think Dusky Skin is what I tend to use for my dark elves. But now if you want the Dusky Skin triad, you can actually create it. I think I did a PDF on this. I've done a PDF on everything. Well, not everything, but nut brown is probably, from bones, is probably the color I would base a Dusky Skin on now. Yeah, maybe. Up to you, Shadow Raven. Drow are evil, but they're also cool, so I don't know. And a lot of people play non-evil drow in RPGs these days. So I'm going to add a little bit of Oxide Red to my base color, and I'm going to add a little bit of Heraldic Red, which is what we used originally, and I know that because I have my card. Oh, that color needs more shaking. I still like my drow to look more natural, so I tend to go with more of a regular dark skin tone with just a hint of something else. but totally understand being considerate of other people. All right, let's see here. Heraldic red, there it is. So I mixed in a little bit of oxide red, and now I'm going to mix in more actual red. I like to use kind of a combo. The oxide red is more naturalistic, and Heraldic's more, you know, candy, because it's a bright out red. Usually when I see reds in skin colors, it's going to be like something like an alizarin crimson, which is more of a muted red rather than a bright red. If you do use a bright red like Heraldic, use very little. Yeah, I keep all my cards just because sometimes I'll want to kind of remember, like, oh, I mixed this really awesome red here, and I want to remember it. And sometimes I do a lot of like sketches for my coaching on cards or sticky notes, and I keep all of them because I found that it's kind of invaluable to have that. All right, so even a tiny bit of red makes this super red, see? But that's not actually a bad pink. It's darker, but that's all right. We can use it as a shadow, and then when we add white, it's going to turn more the pink of my fingers here. So it may shock you at first, but think about, okay, I'm going to be thinning this, so I'm going to put it over a regular skin tone thinned, so I'm not going to get the full impact of that pink color. Where is my water? I just ate it, apparently. Oh, I dropped it. Yeah, have fun, Eric. Oh no, everybody's sensitive these days. It's true. And we should be. Like, we should have empathy. I just tend to shy away, even like when I'm doing like a merfolk or something, I tend to like it. Well, those of you who see me do frost giant stuff and that kind of thing, you know I like a little bit of real, like actual like human type skin tone in my models, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's a half orc, whether it's a frost giantess, whether it's, you know, we did the half orc. Tieflings, this one that we're doing right now is actually a rare exception. Usually I mix human skin tones into tiefling skin tones, into reds to make tiefling skin tones. So it just, essentially I'm consistent. If I'm going to be doing a supernatural skin tone, light or dark, I like to have a bit more brown in it than unusual color. I just find that for humanoids especially, it tends to convey more of the feel I'm going for. But I also kind of like the blue-black kind of effect on drow skin. So, you know, it depends on the model, right? So I can see people doing that. So I'm going to glaze this. See how that pink goes over? But it's not nearly as pink, is it? Because we've glazed it. We've glazed it over what we have, and so it's not nearly as it's not even as strong as her blush there. So that's nice. That gives us a little bit more rosiness. Now I can bring up this highlight again. Yeah, I think your policy is a good one, Shadow Raven. Always be sensitive. Have empathy. Oh, there we go. So I'm adding another highlight here. I got a little bit onto the bandana there, so I'm going to have to go in line. I do want to keep my highlights out here. Just a little bit. You don't want to spend like tons of time on the ears. You just want to get them there so that they have highlights and shadows. Stronger highlight out here as opposed to shadow where it's going underneath the bandana there. A lot of light on the outer edge. There. That's what we're looking at. Sweet. And we are almost like, we've got maybe... Yeah, I agree, Big Apple. It's good to see a variety. There we go. So now that ear is in line with the rest of her. We've got highlights that are consistent. We've put them in pretty good places. I'm going to actually emphasize just a little bit more highlight on this lower rim. There. Now I'm going to just take another look at this cheekbone and maybe widen my highlight a little bit. Because even with people like me, I get a lot of pink. You can see it even, that I've got a lot of pink tone. But if you look up next to my eye, you don't see it. So even with people who are prone to flushing, and I am definitely like, it's cold back here, so I've got like flush in my cheeks. But even with people who are prone to that, prone to a lot of pink color like me, right under that eye, you are not going to see that because that's where your cheekbone is. And like you've got a bone ridge right there. And that's where you tend to see more of a golden color to skin, more of a yellowy shift to skin because you've got that bone right under the skin. The subcutaneous bone is where you see lighter. Forehead is the same. That's why when they talk about the temperature zones of the face, the forehead is like a yellow zone because the skull is right here. So you don't get, like it's real rare to see red unless you're having like an allergic reaction. Some people flush all over when they drink, for example. I am one of them. But otherwise, it's a very rare thing to see unless you're having some sort of reaction. I'm going to pop that highlight. I'm going to pop it on the other side as well. Right on this side. Right up under the eye. Bring it in. Going to bring up a little tiny bit of the highlight up here on the brow. The hat, again, now it's time to check hat position. Oh yeah, we got emails when I put out the ebony skin and ebony flesh and ruddy flesh for bones. People who were, at least one person who was like, I finally have a skin tone where I can paint. Oh, hold on, we've got to shift. Yeah, there we go. I hate it when it shifts more yellow. But yeah, I can finally paint my adventurers my color, you know. So it's definitely important to have good options for skin tones for all different ethnicities. Yeah, see, we shifted yellow again here. Come on, quit shifting. There we go. I just had to keep my my hand in the picture apparently. But all right, so there is a little bit of light here, so we're okay putting that highlight there, but we can't bring it way up. You can see how the hat does put a shadow there, but you can see how a little light leaks in, but you can see how the hat puts a shadow there. So looking at this with the hat in place, I'm still pretty happy with the highlights. It definitely does, like, you can see a difference when you move down to the chest, as far as like where the light really impacts you here, whereas because it's not overshadowed. If I turn her so that I've got my light actually working, like my ring light and my window in the right position, then we've got a much more realistic, you can see it. So progression of light from here and here. It all looks consistent. It looks good. So great. Wow. That was a lot. That's cool, Crows. Alrighty, guys. So, yeah, you got to see, like, when I want to really, really, really geek out and do super smooth skin tones, this is how I do it. You now have had your masterclass on really fine, like, skin tone layering for young skin. Now, I'll still suggest probably a little bit of pores and texture on her skin with, like, the final highlight, just a tiny bit. You gotta not go overboard. Yeah, well, this is how you do it. I mean, you could also set it up with a wet blend, but when I'm trying to work with a lighting effect, especially, I find that I have to go slow because lighting doesn't come, like, naturally to me like it does to David. So layering is slow, so it encourages me to stop and think and look after each bit. so that I can make sure that everything looks consistent and that I'm portraying what I'm trying to do. Any questions, guys? Any questions? I suspect my paint mix for this highlight, by the way, at the end was about 1:2 as far as ratio of paint to water. It's always going to be kind of ballpark if you're using little bits of this and little bits of that. But this is why it's less important to know a ratio and more important to know how should it act? How should it look? How should it feel? Yeah, I know I'm right on the 11 o'clock. But I can go a couple of minutes later if people have questions. No questions? You're all just like, whatever. And going crazy with the layering. There she is. Yeah, this will be a good one. Ron will have to fight me for this one. Or maybe I'll sell her. Oh, she is a limited model. You can't get her anymore. Might be a good one to sell on the Patreon. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes to do her and how much I like her when she's done. I've got so many busts to work on. Yeah, I like her a lot. I'm sure Ron will be like, can I have that one? I don't know though. Ron might have a good... Does Ron have one of these like painted guys? Do you know? Have you seen... Have any of our people painted her? Have you seen a painted one? Nobody, huh? Wow, Quindy. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I might ask for money. I might be like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of that. It's the translucence. Well, I mean, skin itself is translucent, right? But it's really hard to get that quality, to capture that quality in paint. It's why oil paint tends to do a better job of skin. It's why historical painters, I still know historical painters who will do skin tones with oils and everything else with acrylics. Because they can get that depth. Not a painted one yet? Wow. Yeah, I know. I need to get paid for my art. Revolutionary thought, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that they've got a couple set aside and they just don't have one. You know what I could do? And it would be like, it wouldn't be the original model that I said I'd paint for him, but I could paint this for Jean. I could give it to Jean at the end. We'll see. I don't often paint Jean's models. It's just worked out that way. I should go look up models by Jean that I can paint on the stream, because I actually feel like this is the first Jean Van Horn model we painted on stream. I do want to eventually paint a piece for each of the sculptors. Each of my old friends. You're my old friends now, Julie and Bob. So we'll see. I don't know. Her future is a mystery at this point. We'll see how she comes along. But I'm very happy with her piercing blue eyes right now. Old. Hey, I say that in the fondest way, and I'm not a spring chicken either. My spring chicken years are behind me. You are let's see, venerable is even worse. Let's see. What's a good word, guys? What's a good word? For saying old but not old. My established friends. Yeah, he did. I don't have one of those though, Big Apple. Vintage! My vintage friends. Right. Oh, if anybody ever calls me a vintage friend, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm into her though, Big Apple. I don't know. I don't think I've got one. I don't remember. Long time friend. There we go. Long time. Pendrake's got it. Because you could still be long time and you could still not be venerable. Or vintage. No, now that just sounds like you're going to cook people red links. Let's not go there. You guys are awesome. Alrighty, I'm going to call it then. It sounds like y'all have no questions. A lot of you are still working, I know, but I hope that you enjoyed today. This is like probably the first time on video where I've done something this fine with layering. Well, maybe I did one other video that I did for a coaching where I went like, as he put it, how did he put it? He put it beast mode, where I went beast mode on the layering. So this is beast mode, guys. Welcome to beast mode, where it takes you an hour and a half to do one layer of highlighting on a bust. That's beast mode. The Anne beast mode. Tenacious. That's a good one. Yes. Oh yeah, somebody on the forums is working. I figured somebody would be painting her. She's fun. She's super fun. Having the big details is really nice when you're painting. Could really bring stuff out. Yeah, I think we're going to have to do some blue on her somewhere else. I haven't decided on other colors, but we'll have to talk about that as we get going on her. But yeah, I'm pleased. I'm pleased right now. Very pleased. She looks serious. Oh, Sig Wolf. Oh, good. Cool. If I have time, I'll go over and look. But speaking of time, it's now time to pass the stream on into the beyond and ask Quindy who the heck is on later. Oh, is it... It's not Reaperland, is it? Oh, no, it's reaperlive. Oh, and Josh. Right. I knew there was somebody in between. All right, so Josh at 2 p.m. USA Central Time. Thank you all. Tomorrow we'll be working on Darius again, trying to really kind of get Darius like close to done. That's kind of my goal. Yeah, I hope you had fun this stream. This was a rare one. This was an unusually in-depth and stream. Have fun, everybody, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.